Welcome to Moving Through Menopause, and we are live. It is here with me, Philippa, and I've got Nikki with me in the room almost. Hello, Nikki.
Hi, good to see you again. Can't believe it's been a month since we were last talking.
I know, where does the time go, honestly? I mean, it flies by. So we're still moving through menopause and finding about all the little things that come to visit us, symptoms that we might never have even thought of, having a connection with this decline in estrogen levels. And digestive system issues is definitely something that I can speak to from my own experience. And I don't know if this is something that you've had any trouble with at all, Nikki.
Yeah, definitely. It is something that I've had some trouble with. I think that I've probably noticed it particularly around my running as well, I have to say. But yeah, I think that bloating and also digestive problems and nausea are some of the common recognized symptoms of the menopause. So I think that it's going to be something that will resonate with a lot of people.
Absolutely. The beating the bloat I put in the post, because that, I mean, that sometimes the bloating is so bad that you're almost double the size that you would normally be. And this is, it's really, it can be very uncomfortable and painful. And actually, I found, and I find on occasion still, that I would be waking in the night because the discomfort of being filled with, I mean, gas or whatever it was, actually was painful and would wake me up in the night. So, even if you're just happily sleeping away and not being wakened with night sweats and goodness knows what else, then your digestive system was waking me up as well. So it is something, there's no doubt that there is a connection. And so today we are talking all things digestion. But of course, we're slightly depleted. You may have noticed that. Me and Nikki here to begin with, and Jackie's going to join us in a little while. And we've got June, by the power of modern technology, joining us by video. She's made a pre-recorded offering, and so we'll be having a listen to June very shortly. But yeah, there's absolutely no doubt that for lots of people, digestion is something that poor digestion or difficulties with digestion creeps up on us. Things that we used to be able to get away with start to cause us problems. And it really was terrible for me, I must confess. Not even necessarily the weight gain, but the pain and the sort of what's the word, unpredictability of the insides was something that I was troubled with. So why don't we listen to what June has to say first of all? June is speaking as an acupuncturist and a kinesiologist. And so from a Chinese medicine perspective, she gives us some tips, and I think you might quite like this. So let's hear what June has to say.
Hello, my dear friends in the Menopause Collective and other listeners today. I'm so sorry I can't be with you, but I just wanted to dive in and give you some of my tips from Chinese medicine and kinesiology about digestion. One of my favorite subjects. If you can't keep the digestion on track, then other things are bound to go wrong. And this starts from being very young right throughout our lives. So I do try my best to keep everybody's digestive systems in good order. So it's really mainly a personal thing, because from Chinese medicine point of view, we are all prone to being hot, cold, damp, or wind. Now, we're not talking about the normal kind of wind that we tend to think of when we think of digestion. We're talking about the Chinese medicine type of wind where things move quickly and move around too much. So that can be a problem, but mostly the other kind of wind is caused by things being slowed down in the digestive system. So as I keep saying, and anybody who knows me, I do keep saying this, it's all about keeping things moving smoothly. So, and you may be surprised to know that there are hormones in the digestive system. So it's not surprising that there will be some disruption when your hormones start to change in the menopausal time frame. So really balancing things out, especially if you're feeling particularly hot, going with the seasons, eating locally, eating organic if possible, to try and avoid the excessive amounts of pesticides and other chemicals that are on a lot of crops, because they can play havoc with your digestive system, as we're finding out more and more these days. But also, if you are hot with perhaps some cold, it's worth balancing that out. So making sure that you get a proper balance of the hot type of foods. Bring the hot foods right down, settle your digestive system, but don't go overboard on the cold things. That's really, really important. And eat things that are easily digestible, because as I said before, things do start to slow down. So if you eat loads of raw stuff, that can be disruptive as well. So yeah, and there are some general massage points to help. I don't want to go on too long. Massage the lower legs from the knees to the ankles on the outside of the shins. That's very helpful for keeping things moving. And the 2 points either side of your navel, about an inch to each side. I know that's old measurements and I can't do centimeters. I'm very sorry. So that's all I wanted to say today. So enjoy the rest of the chat, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.
Well, so some interesting stuff, and I think the hot food, cold food is an interesting thought. That if we have, I suppose as well, it's not just about hot in temperature, but maybe spicy foods and such that will speak to that heating us up generally. So, but creating the balance between the hot and the cold, and easily digestible foods are going to put less demands on the digestive system, and so therefore if it is in any way depleted, that will be easier for us to process. And so she was talking a little bit about the stomach meridian in Chinese medicine. Lies, I mean, it's actually is a very long one, and it starts in the front of you and travels all down either side of the midline, just off, but like she said, about an inch off to the side, and it ends in your foot. And passes down the side of the shin bone. And so massaging, in that part of your leg, you wouldn't necessarily think of massaging your leg to help your digestion, would you? But it's the stomach 36 in particular is a very influential point for digestion. And I think actually in China, they would stimulate that point after every meal to encourage and facilitate digestion. And so, I'm acupuncture trained in my physio profession, albeit predominantly for pain relief. But I am interested in all these things. There's so much to know, and I do love to know as much as I possibly can. But so, this is all fine and dandy, isn't it? You are what you eat, and we've heard that said. And so, what kinds of things should we be eating? We're bombarded, like June said, really, with inputs on the television, the advertisements for what is it now, that Deliveroo. They'll deliver anything to Deliveroo, won't they? You can get your Starbucks. It's just, the possibilities are endless, and sadly, I don't necessarily think that's a good thing. Because if it's coming from Deliveroo, yeah, I don't know, probably not the best choices. But anyway, on occasion, 80-20 rule, I like that rule. What you do 80% of the time, or maybe 85% of the time. So, Nikki, what have you got to add?
Yeah, I mean, digestion is it's a fascinating area, really, isn't it? I mean, notwithstanding the fact that in many ways it's a very uncomfortable area for a lot of us to talk about, not least because of the discomfort that you spoke about earlier on. But as British, it's kind of an area and a function of the body that we don't like to speak about an awful lot. So I think that very often, issues around the area are not necessarily shared, particularly as much as they could be. And it's also an area that's really kind of coming to the fore at the moment, I think, in in sort of medical science and nutrition with the sort of the microbiome and the link between the gut brain axis and that kind of thing, and the impact that that has overall on our health. It's not an area that I am a specialist in at all, but it is an area that I am fascinated by and definitely kind of trying to stay on top of as more and more information comes out around it. But I think that from a digestion perspective, we've got to look at there's a number of things that we can think about, maybe around intolerances and allergies that we need to be aware of, and also the gut microbiome. But just in general, there's things that we can do around developing healthy habits around our eating and around our digestion, which is really where I, work mostly with my clients. So, things like eating breakfast, for example. Eating is really important to get the energy levels up and get the body moving, at the start of the day. But also it helps reduce our cortisol levels. Our cortisol levels are raised, elevated in the morning when we wake up. It's the hormone that wakes us from our sleeping state and kind of gets us going during the day. And, eating breakfast helps us to regulate those cortisol levels and bring them down. And that's obviously, the stress hormone. We don't want too much of that in the body. And, stress can aggravate digestion and things like that. So, if we can make sure that we eat a breakfast and get into and make that a habit that, at the start of the day, we do eat breakfast and try and aim for it to include protein and fiber and even healthy fats. So the things that are going to help with our satiety, so that we're not reaching for sugar-laden snacks mid-morning, because the presence then of that high sugar is also going to impact on our digestion within our body, and it's not going to be great. So that's one habit that can really help. Another one is very much making time to eat. It's so easy nowadays to grab food on the go, particularly lunch. People will grab a handful of food while they're trying to do something else at the same time. That doesn't help with our digestive process either. We need to sit down and take that time to eat slowly so that our body can start the digestive process and it can start to help, relieve some of those discomforts that we might find.
I think that is really important, actually, to make meal times, like the French, make it into a real event and take time out of your working day. And so we've got Jackie ready to join us. Let's welcome Jackie. Hi, Jackie. How are you today?
Yes, hi Philippa. Thanks for inviting me along. Sorry, I'm a little late to the discussion.
Well, we were just talking about creating time for our meal times so that meals are not rushed. And we know, you've heard probably that thing about chewing your food 100 times or something. I don't know how many times it is. But, that does speak to the fact that it takes a while. Digestion starts in your mouth with amylase. And so if you're not actually chewing and having the food in your mouth and getting the saliva mixed in with it, then your guts have got more work to do. So it is important to make this time, and just in the broadest sense, making that, an opportunity to be quiet and still and meditative. It can even be a meditative kind of experience, can't it, Jackie?
Very much so. I mean, eating's actually something that we should be enjoying. It should be something that we're taking time over and, becoming involved in the act of it, as opposed to just, consuming on the go, giving no thought to what we're having. If we are eating on the go, then it's most likely not going to be nutritionally dense anyway. It's going to be some sort of quick grab snack that's processed and just not generally good for us. So mindful eating. And that starts with actually the preparation as well. That starts with our thoughts. The right back to thinking about actually what am I even going to choose to eat, and making that wise choice, making something that is actually good for us. Because all of these convenience foods or processed foods or junk foods, they don't require us to actually think about what we're going to cook or think about eating. We've even got into a means there when we go into the supermarket and we're just looking at something that we don't even actually have to do anything to. It's already done. So that prospect of even preparing our meal has even been taken away from us with ready-made rubbish food. So the mindfulness has to start right back at the beginning of thinking about the ingredients that we're going to pick, how we're going to cook them, what we're going to make. Is it actually good for me? Because if it's pre-made and it comes in a box and it's processed, it's not nutritionally dense. It's not good for us. And this also links back to our thought process, because there's just a huge amount of research out there now linking the two things between processed food and our mind and our mental well-being. We need nutritionally dense food to feel well. We need it to think well. So taking that mindfulness all the way back to the beginning is ideal. And cooking, just learning to cook again, learning to use basic ingredients, sit down, enjoy it, take your time.
Take your time. And I mean, that is going to ultimately pay dividends when it comes to any symptoms associated with digestive disruption. And June mentioned wind. And I mean, we know women don't fart. That's not a thing, is it? Obviously. But I mean, so gulping your food down, gulping air, fizzy drinks, Nikki mentioned that to me earlier. We're just going to give ourselves this gas that we can happily live without. So taking your time and making the right choices is sugar. There's absolutely no doubt for me that sugar will blow me up like a balloon. I can guarantee it. So I mean, it's totally does. But the only way you start to realize these things are happening is by stopping having them, because you become totally desensitized to the effects of what we have when you can't see the wood for the trees. And so if we can really strip it away, back to basics, and then you introduce something that you would have had before on a regular basis, and all of a sudden you realize that thing is playing you like a fiddle. And so now we know, we were talking about sensitivities and such, like reacting to foods. But for a lot of the time, you can't pick out what's going on until you really strip it back to basics. And then you maybe try something once every now and again, and you think, oh yeah, this is really does what I thought it did, and it's doing it again. So it is so important. We can't talk about digestive issues without talking about the inputs. But the other thing that we obviously we have to talk a little bit about is the outputs, and that's in nursing. I never forget how nurses have to monitor all the inputs and outputs. The fluid balance chart, they call it, and then the BMs is the bowel motion. So we. It's a really important part of health to monitor the inputs and the outputs. And constipation is something that can feature for women around this time. And, and the two things that I would say to people is, have you moved enough, as in physically moving, and have you drunk enough, as in
Yeah.
liquid. So there are some really nice movements actually that can help to facilitate digestion, and some taken from yoga, but they're also there in Pilates, and so movements with rotation generally will facilitate a kind of, you can imagine, if you imagine wringing out a cloth, you know, and you think of that at the level of your navel. And so we can influence the digestive system with movement, certain yoga movements in particular. And I'm going to show you a few at the end. You can all join in with that. But the other thing, of course, is moving wise, that there are significant acupuncture points that lie within the sacral joints. So in the sacroiliac joints, you have 2 points, and they're influential for the colon, and so you can influence those joints through movement. And so if we think about walking, the pelvis kind of moves in this way as you walk, and so that is influencing those very key sacroiliac, the key points in the sacroiliac joints. And so, you know, older people who become sedentary and sitting in a chair all day, I notice it myself if I spend a day, you know, relatively sedentary, that it does influence that. So even if you can't get outside, run up and down, going up and down stairs is quite a good one for that. You can imagine how that would be. So run up and down stairs a few times, or even just walk up and down stairs a few times if you're finding that your gut motility is reduced. And yeah, definitely move, and the fluids as well, so important. I don't know about you, but honestly, I feel like I can hardly keep on top of the fluids that I need. I don't know where they're all going. I mean, what do you think, Nikki? God.
Yeah, I mean, staying hydrated is so important, isn't it, for so much of our health and lifestyle? But absolutely, it definitely helps with the kind of the digestive function and the digestive system. I don't think I'm necessarily struggling to keep on top of the amount of fluids that I need, to be honest with you. I'm not having that kind of an issue, but yeah, it's generally important anyway for us for an overall healthy lifestyle, and it can only be a good thing, so long as it's the right amount, and water is what we should be looking to consume.
Well,
As
that's
I said,
right.
the fizzy drinks
Clear
doesn't help with
fluids.
absolutely, yeah.
So, so yeah, the consistency is not something that we talk about either, but they did have pictures on the nursing chart. So it's funny how this stuff sticks in your mind of, you know, so you could circle what the consistency of the output was. And so if it's anything like rabbit droppings, then I'm afraid you definitely
Constipated.
definitely. And you know, ideally we should be going every day, and sometimes even twice in a day. So if you're not, if you know, if you don't have a regular habit, things are backing up, and that definitely has a bearing on the microbiome, doesn't it? The fiber in food is very what's the word, nourishment for those gut bacteria, so that, you know, high fiber foods. Obviously, if anybody remembers the F-plan diet back from the 80s, with you know, everybody suddenly eating all this bran and experiencing significant side effects, is all I'm going to say. You know,
Fibre is an interesting one because the recommended daily amount for adults for consumption for fibre is 30 grams, and they say that very few of us get anywhere close to that. Like, very few of us even get close to half of that, and yet it is such an important component of keeping a healthy digestion and keeping a healthy microbiome, and helping to protect us against a lot of those lifestyle diseases, which, you know, as we move into midlife and menopause, become more of a risk and more prevalent anyway.
That's right, Jackie. Do you have any clue how much 30 grams is if you had to like visualize it on a plate?
30 grams of fibre. Do you know, I don't. No.
It's
But it's
academic,
obviously,
yeah.
we have to be aware that we can get it also from vegetables, that we need to be increasing that as an abundance. We don't need to be sort of focusing highly upon it being wheat-based. Yeah, sort of
Oh, yeah.
get
Cool.
lots of the
Quite right.
green stuff into us. But, even picking up on that same thread in terms of the gut microbiome and our bowel movements, our thoughts also play into this as well, because when we're having stressful thoughts, instantly we've got that bi-directional connection down into the gut, which interacts and disturbs that microbiome, which in turn then disturbs what's happening coming out. So how we're thinking, how we're feeling mentally plays into it hugely as well. Again, so does the water, because when we're dehydrated, our first thought actually sinks to food, not to drinking.
Right,
So
yeah.
we have to ask ourselves, actually, when did I last have a drink? Am I actually thirsty as opposed to hungry? And having a drink of water first before we actually listen to see whether it's hunger we're responding to. Now, for most people, I would say they don't even experience real hunger anymore. It's mostly just a thought, because unless you've got some tummy rumbles actually happening, and you're not actually hungry, it's just a thought about food that's coming first. And when we are typically hungry, these stomach rumbles come on and then they wear off, and then they come on again. And this is a process of a few hours. This isn't just something that happens within 10 minutes. Most people experiencing hunger that is urgent and insistent is usually a drop in the blood glucose levels. It's not actually real hunger. So learning to distinguish these signs as well is really important also. But yeah, drinking water, having a calm mind allows for having a calm gut, which allows for having a calm bowel as well. So it's we have to look at our whole body holistically, everything that we're doing, our thoughts, our actions, and what we're consuming, either in food or in
I mean,
then
that's so important, isn't it? What you say there. I mean, I only have to know that I've got something going on, in the day, and my mind is preoccupied, and my usual morning habit. I'm
out the
sharing
window.
so much today. Is interfered with.
Yeah.
And so that, like you say, this bi-directional nature, the fact that thoughts can influence the gut and gut can influence the thoughts.
Yeah.
It's just an absolute fascinating thing that we do have to look at people in this holistic fashion. We can't just say, oh, is it a stress or whatever. The every bit of the body is in communication with remote parts, and it's so very important to have the body in balance as best we possibly can. I know some people subscribe to that and some don't, but I personally think that if we can generate balance, then we're halfway there at least.
Yeah, definitely. Yes.
So
Yeah.
you know
You
what,
can't.
I would like to show you some useful maneuvers that might, if you find yourself a bit on the bunged up side of the house, that these things can be really helpful. So I'm going to take you out of the broadcast, and then I'll bring you back in a moment, if that's okay. So that we'll come to be on the mat, and if anybody's got space to get on the carpet and have a go, then please do. And I'm going to adjust my camera down so that you can see me here on the ground. Here I am, going to be in a second. Yes? Okay, so for the most part, what we want to do is things that move the lumbar spine, the sacroiliac joints, and the contents of the gut. So this is a maneuver in yoga which people will be familiar with. It's called the cat. And so notice that I am actually inhaling as I go into that hollow shape. and then exhaling as I come and round up my low back. And there's actually a pose in yoga called the wind releasing pose. And so this is definitely better done online, where you can be in the privacy of your own home when you're doing the wind relieving pose. I'll show you that in a minute. So this cat camel, it can be really, cat cow rather, it can be really nice for low back aches, but also it's starting to speak to the digestion. And then I'm coming to kneel. Now, not everybody can kneel in this way. In fact, my head's not quite in it there, is it? Let me put my head in, hang on. So not everybody can kneel in this way, but if you can't, come to sit cross-legged. So rotations I spoke about before, and I'm going to turn towards the right. That's my right, and I hope that's your right too. And so as you turn to the right, notice that I'm in a line, I'm not leaning forwards or backwards. And you would always go to the right first and then come towards the other side, the left. And so notice that we've got this ringing out sort of sensation around the level of the navel as you turn your head if you wish it and look over the shoulder. And I'm using this hand on the front of me just to help. So we can repeat if you wish it to the other side, but rotations. And when you rotate in this way, exhale, so that the exhalation facilitates just a little more movement. Inhale back to the center, exhale to the other side. So rotations can really be beneficial. And there's another way in which we can do rotations, and that's lying flat on your back and rocking the knees from side to side. So this is another one that can get the digestive system going. And it may be that it's the effects are not immediate, but I've definitely had success, shall we say. I'm turning my head, looking over the opposite shoulder, and that's just because I think it feels nice to do it. And it's also mobilizing the neck as well. So inhale and exhale. Exhale back into the center. And then coming back to the center. Pelvic tilting. So this is where you imagine you've got a marble on your pubic bone and you are rolling it into your belly button and flattening the back. If I move my hand away, you can maybe see that I've got a space under the back of me. And then I'm flattening my back, rolling my pelvis in towards me and then away. So this pelvic rocking, again, this can get things moving. And also if you're in discomfort, digestive discomfort, it can alleviate that. And then last of all, the wind releasing pose. It's probably no surprise to know that this is it. Hugging the knees in towards the chest, and you can using the thighs to sort of massage onto the abdominal contents, and even maybe rocking around on the back of you, massaging the back of the body if that feels comfortable to do. So just a few little suggestions of things if you're feeling discomfort or in need of emotion. Here we are. We'll return to back to the studio. My hair's all of a doodah now after that. So, oh yeah, it definitely is. Well, there you go. So what did you think? Did you join in?
I did have a little twist. Yes.
Oh yes, wheelchairs. They're quite good.
Yeah.
There you go. Swivel away. So, the thing, generate, create balance, but don't accept this as an inevitability, because there is so much that we can do for our own selves to help ourselves. I think the difficulty comes in implementing these changes in our lives, because that obviously you've got other influences, friends and family, and not everybody's necessarily on singing from the same hymn sheet, are they? And that can provide challenges. But even, you know, for our own selves, habits, we have to generate new habits to create, to, you know, replace the old habits. And that's a process that takes time. It doesn't just happen overnight. If you've got changes to make in your life, the first thing is most people, for the most part, know that there's something they could do that would be different, that would help, but, or even just optimize the situation. But then it's the taking action, and then it's making it stick, that are, you know, really challenging for so many of us, and me included. You know, I will, if I was to, definitely, I have my own experience of that. So what sort of tips have we got to help people to make the changes that, for the most part, they kind of know they should do? Nikki?
I think that I think the biggest kind of tip really to give anybody is start small. You know, think about small steps. Don't try and eat the elephant in the in common parlance, but you know, every small step that you can take is, you know, a step towards the goal. And I also think that, and you know, another one is that don't expect the motivation to come first. Like, the motivation comes as the result of taking action. So encourage yourself to take that small step, and having taken that small step, and by taking some action and therefore seeing some kind of a change or some kind of a result or something positive, that will then give further motivation, continue to take the next step and the next step, and then to kind of make it a natural part of your routine, if you like.
Yeah.
So, you know, in terms of kind of habit forming and habit developing, I think those are two really big things for people to take on board.
Yeah. Jackie, what would you say? Have you got anything?
Yeah, very, very much the same as what Nikki is saying. Definitely start small. To help secure change as well, though, we need to really focus in. When we really take the time and channel in that mental focus into what we're doing, that's what's actually helping to create the change in the mind. We can't learn something by just, you know, not applying ourselves. Yeah. So if you really want to secure change in the mind, really focus into it. And, you know, benefiting me as well, for hypnosis has been shown to be able to back up that change within the mind. So whatever it is you're wanting to do, so whether it's changing an eating plan, changing an exercise plan, or whatever it is in life, focus on what you're doing at that point in time, and then you can back up that change with some self-hypnosis or hypnotherapy.
Yeah, I mean, the mind is so amazingly powerful and fascinating. We're only scratching the surface, aren't we, really, with what we know about the mind. We know more about outer space, apparently, than we do about the brain. Yeah, so, and that'll be down to Brian Cox, no doubt. I do rather like him. Anyway, on that note, I thank you so much for your tips today. It's a journey, not a destination. Sorry, that we're aiming for, isn't it? And you know, and to embrace the process. I think, you know, the shopping for the cooking can be a family affair. We can, especially with younger children, get them involved, and teenagers. You know, I've got an 18-year-old who's about to move out of the nest, and you know, for me now, it's a kind of mad scramble, because this particular one liked to hide in his bedroom when I was trying to teach him to cook. You know, so we're cooking together, and it can be such a fun thing for families to do, and couples as well, you know, to engage in a cookery session over and then a nice slow evening date night in. It could be a fabulous way of reigniting relationships. So put food together with some wonderful company, and there you go. You've got a recipe for success. So thank you, ladies, so much for your time today. Do take care. Have a lovely weekend, and I'll speak to you again soon.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Philippa. See you soon. Bye-bye.
Bye.